stuck to my traditional values and stuff. So with saying that, it's an honor to be here at the University of Victoria and to, get to speak with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. But before I start with my current struggle and the struggle that we had in our territory, I want to bring forward the struggles that are happening locally in so-called British Columbia and within the territory. Since she explained earlier the struggles that they're having here. Up northwest from here, there's also a fight against imperial metals. So there's a lot of different indigenous struggles that are happening in protection of the water and to defend the land, where we truly believe with our heart, minds, and spirits that it's a responsibility and it's something that can't be taken from us because we were born into this responsibility. And as soon as the moment we were born, we made a political statement because we refused to be undermined by the corporate Canadian government, and we don't back down and we don't surrender. We don't allow for anybody to assert their authority over us, despite it being the RCMP, despite it being the government, or even the Indian elected government, who tend to say that they represent us even though they don't. So with our struggle in our territory, it should bring light on the struggles that are happening here, because all across it's for the water, for the protection of the water. And when I went to a ceremony, I always say to protect the water, put myself in front of it and get a reminder that we can't place something that's above us and that's greater than us behind us, because it's more powerful than we can even imagine, because it's responsible for life and it also can take life. So we have to be able to put the water in front of us and to use the power of that water in order for us to be able to function as nations and as people. So that ceremony really brought a lot of awakening to myself and to Cody and to the other people who were there. I can't exactly speak for them because I'm only speaking for myself. And with saying that, that's where the struggle is at the core of us. That's because with our connection to all life and our connection to our ceremonies and our connection to our culture, it's all, basics of that is the connection to our water, to the connection to the past and the connection to the future. We see this as the purest element of life, and that's the thing that we have to make sure that it remains pure. We have to pray for it. We have to pray to it. We have to sing to it, we have to sing for it. We have to do everything that we can for that water. So with our struggle in our territory, it all always ends up boiling down to not in my backyard. When something happens in your own territory, your own community, you don't want to put up with it, you're not going to put up with it. And you're going to make any stand to make sure that your backyard is basically protected. So in saying that, there was a wind turbine company who wanted to come and destroy our natural aquifer, which was a place of ceremonial and spiritual solitude for many of our community members, where we would go. We had trap lines up there, and we had an area where it was peace and tranquil, where you escaped all of the traffic, all of the people, and we were just one with the earth. And this is what they wanted to destroy. And this aquifer fed water into our water table. So, and this is where we get our water from, our drinking water. So I was adamant, and I wanted to make sure that this wasn't touched. And so we reached out into the community, and we reached out online and to several different organizations, and we came together. And so it was really a teaching experience, how to organize and how to band together and create unity, and to be able to come together quickly for one cause. So from there, with the success of disputing that, my father was sitting with me and he said, "Why don't you do something about that fracking?" And I said, "Well, what are you talking about? What fracking? What are you saying?" And he's like, "Up there," and he pointed towards the mountains, and he said, "Beyond that mountain, there's the lake," and he said, "That's where they want to drill for oil or gas." I said, "Well, I'll find out more about it." So I did more research and to try to find out, making more connections out there, where I talked to people who were active in the industry and who quit the industry because they saw the pollution and the devastating effects, and they were personally affected, where their water was on fire, where their water wells literally exploded, where people who have been arrested have faced the issues that you face when you try to stand up against corporate greed. So with that, we were able to use that unity efforts and all the learning that we did, and this company came out, as he explained earlier, Petroworth Resources. Through our lobbying efforts, they showed up, and they decided to hold an information session, a so-called information session, but not one of the community members allowed him to speak. He spoke for about 5-10 minutes, and he was asked the question, what is the benefit to our nation? And his idea of it being beneficial was 1 or 2 jobs. And we thought that was sickening, so we didn't let him continue, and we took over the whole meeting, and we decided to tell him about who we were. And so with that, there was peaceful demonstrations, there was court lobbying action, there was a lot of different avenues being played out, and we ended up coming together for a water ceremony, which was a beautiful ceremony, and we all came together, and we were using the spirit and intent of our ancestors to make sure that our waters were protected. The company went broke. They never came back, and we never heard or seen from them again. Well, they changed their name in hopes or attempts that they'll be able to crawl out of the depths of bankruptcy and, come and terrorize our territory. But we have Creator on our side. So with the success of that, with LC Buktuk, because we're from a different part of our territory is really big, and to understand it, it's 5 provinces in 1 state. It includes so-called Newfoundland, so-called Prince Edward Island, so-called Nova Scotia, so-called New Brunswick, and so-called Quebec and Maine. So that's all Mi'kmaq territory. There's nothing but Mi'kmaq that live there, and outside of the borders of our territory, there's Maliseet, Penobscot, Abenaki, and Mohawk, and going down towards down the St. John River. But this is mainly our territory, which is why we're kind of in cultural shock when we come down this side, and we see so many different nations and languages and cultures all in close proximity of one another, and it's probably because of the high-rise mountains that we're able to, have those distinct boundaries between one another, where we're mainly hilly compared to here. So when we were called out to go to LC Buktuk, which was in the beginning of June, it basically was a recon mission to find out what exactly is happening down there, and how to bring forth our knowledge of our fight from our part of the territory to help this part of the territory. So we were lobbying together, finding a centralized location where people can come together, where people can put their prayers into, to bring that sacredness into it as well, so they could pray into the sacred fire, they could lay their tobacco down, they could lay their medicines down, but also to be able to have another area for meeting, for strategic planning, and to be able to defend ourselves against this company and the RCMP who are aiding them. And when we got there was already a woman whose arm was broken by the RCMP, another youth who was detained for a few hours for standing up and to tell the RCMP to lay their hands off of his mother, which was honorable of him to do. He wasn't charged, but he was detained for a 16-year-old, so they really couldn't do much without the permission of his parents. And on June 9th, I was arrested for praying up there, and I decided to represent myself afterwards, after my federally or provincially paid lawyer, you could say, those legal aids, they're no good. They got me a condition of 1 kilometer against any, not allowed near any shale gas testing or exploration. So I found that to be ridiculous, because it was my belief I'm allowed anywhere in my territory, because it's my, at the time I believed in rights, because it's my right to. But it's my responsibility to grow my territory, to make sure everything is okay. And so what ended up happening there was I had to go for a conditional hearing where I'm disputing my conditions. And I refused to leave because I was like, well, I'm not saying whether I'm guilty or not, because I don't want this condition, and in order for me to move beyond that point is I want this condition removed. So I was fighting with the courts for about 5 months, representing myself, and every time I went up, the Crown prosecutor was never ready, or he wasn't prepared, or he needed a special lawyer to come in to fight the case. And I was thinking in my head, how can this man not be prepared when he went to law school? And he's been fighting cases, and he should be prepared. Years of preparation. I'm here. I only have myself as my representation. I don't have the same education as him, but I guess I got him good because I'm not charged. Upon my first arrest, I stated that to the police, and I told them that I was sovereign and they had no authority over me. And to this day, every time I speak to them, I tell them the same thing, that I'm sovereign and they have no authority over me, because I believe that they don't. And that belief has me today with no charges, and I've been charged 3 times and arrested twice, but yet still I don't have no business in court, nothing. So which is a you know, it's a accomplishment in itself. With all of this action that was happening on the ground, with creating this uniting factors and the different acts of civil disobedience that happened, most people are focusing on what happened on October 17th, although there was a lot of work that happened prior to that. That infamous morning of October the 17th, Cody was able to give you a perspective of things that he saw from the outside perimeter trying to enter in. I was one of the individuals who was inside of the perimeter because we slept there, like you said, on the ground in tents and teepees, where we were there to stand our ground and to make sure that this company wasn't going to come and test for their hydrocarbons that are within the ground, and they were not going to test for shale gas that's in the ground. They're not going to find out what's there. So we're not going to let them. And the injunction was up on October the 18th. So October the 17th, the cops strategically planned to come in with hundreds and hundreds of police officers to get rid of us, to take us out of there. My initial thought was that we were all going to get slaughtered on that day, that we're all going to die. And what else are you going to do if you're already, when you wake up in your head, you look around, when you come out of the bush and there's hundreds of guns already pointed. There's basically nothing you can do. You're already in the line of fire. So you basically say, well, are you willing to stand your ground? Are you willing to say what you always say? Because are you willing to die for your people? So that was the stand that we made on the inside. That lasted for a couple hours, where there was yelling back and forth between the police and us, and then there was silence moments where you heard nothing. And when the police came rushing in, they tackled about approximately 10 officers per person, but for some reason they had 40 on me, and my spouse, who's one of the political prisoners of war, who's still incarcerated, took half of them off, was able to get half of them onto him instead of on me, and they were able to drag me across the road. But when they first came attacking, they had their assault rifles out, and they're all yelling, and they all had them pointed at my head, and they busted through the windshield, hit me on the top of the head, and then they continued to bash my head around with their assault rifles, which was about 5 or 6 times when they threw me down on the ground. And then that's when the bullets started coming in, flying. And then when I looked over, my spouse was laying beside me, and he had more than half of the officers on him now, and then they wanted to kill him, and they stated that they were going to kill him. So when they walked us up the road, and we wanted a medical assistant, we wanted to be put on an ambulance, and we wanted to go to the hospital, but because of their security measures, they had to take us all to the police station, and they refused to give us any medical assistance because they didn't want the record to prove that they treated us unfairly, that they were the violent ones, that they inflicted the violence upon our people. So they refused that right off the bat, but I wouldn't shut up, and I wouldn't allow them to not get me any medical assistance. So I kept adamant that that's all I kept saying. I kept knocking on the cell doors, demanding that I get medical assistance. I was able to call home and got my mom, who is 70 years old, to lobby for me. I said, you do what you can, and it's amazing what moms can do. And she, you know, I got medical assistance while I was in there. I was like, yeah, Mom. I was like, she don't Facebook, she don't nothing, and she's look at this. So it was awesome to see, you know, that I was able to finally get help. But apparently the men who are incarcerated, their names are up here, and that's why we put it up there. Right to our political prisoners of war. Jermaine is my spouse, and Aaron is my brother. That's what we call each other within the society, our brothers. So they were beaten bad that day, and they were beaten on the way there, when they got there. They were being treated as severe terrorists. They have over 15 charges each. My spouse has at least 19. Aaron has about 16. And they're still without trial. You know, it's my vision to finally see that someday, that, you know, the true people of the territories are able to take care of the people that are residing in those territories, and that we don't have to rely on this corporate greed monster that we call the so-called government. And it's been a really good experience coming out here. We went up to Onostoki camp where we prayed in their traditional way, and that's the furthest north we went. But we prayed in their traditional way, and we jumped into their water, and we took dips. It was about, how cold was it outside? It was about -18 outside. And we took off our no clothes, and we jumped in. And it was very refreshing. It was awesome. Oh, yeah, my response was, they said, how does it feel? I said, cold. And it was the calmest day. You know, it's crazy. In stressful situations, when I'm under stress, I tend to be calm. And it's funny because you can even see it in that video because I'm like, oh, good. You know, as if nothing happened. Yeah. Oh, and when the cops were beating me up on October 18th or 17th, I was laying there and I was like, can you guys stop beating me up? And then I'm looking at my spouse and they're choking him, trying to kill him. Aren't you guys satisfied? You don't have to kill us. And I was like so calm. It's ridiculous. Like normally I'd be yelling, you know, and I yell and I like to yell. But during really stressful situations, I tend to get calm. It's like weird. But it's a good emotion, I guess, to be able to tap into because then nothing can freak you out. And with our journey, we were hoping to be able to come down here and ignite the sparks of resistance and ignite the sparks of emancipating ourselves from colonial oppression, and to be able to come in and show people that there's an urgency to defend what's left, to defend who we are, to be able to be who we are, because when you link the colonial history and how they've oppressed our people over these 500 years, it's an ongoing circle where they're continuing to oppress us through their oppressive legislators, through their oppressive policies, their oppressive laws where it's illegal to be an Indian. We're coming back to that, where it's illegal to be Indian. Oh, it's okay. Now they're calling it terrorism. Okay, you're indigenous individual stating that it's your right or it's your responsibility. All of a sudden, you're a terrorist. You want clean water, you're a terrorist. So they're now using the model of oppressing us to oppress all so-called Canadians all across this great indigenous nation, we'll call it. No. I just renamed it. But we have to start to strive for a better future, and if we don't start to implement our ideas for change, then we're just being think tanks. And we need to move beyond that. We have to be those moving wheels of progress and change, because this isn't the type of progress and change we want. We want better lives for our future and our future generations. We want them to enjoy water. We want them to enjoy the land. You see how this beautiful cedar got brought out to us. We want our children to enjoy that. We want our children to enjoy the water that we have placed before us. And we want them to be able to be who they are, who they're meant to be, without being oppressed, without having these institutionalized bars in front of them, despite them being institutionalized within the communities or institutionalized within the education system, and them learning a colonial perspective on the history of so-called Canada, and for them to we want to decolonize everybody's mind and for everybody to realize the true history of what exactly how Canada was born, how the government stole our lands, how they manipulated the system, and how they were able to fool everybody into thinking that this is even real. Because through research, this guy did research in the late 1930s, where he researched the British North America Act, and he said there's no original copy. So what's the repatriation of the British North America Act? And there's no original copy. I don't know. He just said that the population is naive to believe that it's even true. So it goes to show how when you believe something, that you can make it true. And the system had everybody believing that the Constitution and the B&E Act is a true representation of who we are to be as people, that it blinded us to who we are really supposed to be and our real responsibilities as humans. And when our ancestors were approached by great spirits many, many, many years ago, prior to the settlers coming, we were told that we were going to show these new people how to be human, and we're still trying. And it's my hope that my children are actually able to be human instead of trying to show people how to be human. So in closing, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out tonight. I don't know if I was able to get down to what nitty-gritty stuff you guys wanted to hear, but I rolled with whatever it was, that atmosphere that's happening in here. So thank you, we'll love you all.
Request. Hello everybody, my name is Connor Huspashki. I'm from the Secwepemc Nation and around 5 hours inland from Vancouver. I've been traveling and been honored to be traveling with the Micmac Warrior Society and building alliance with them. We have our Women's Warrior Society reinstated back in our nation. It's really important to take note that this is what Canada is doing to our Indigenous people, our Indigenous brothers that are standing up for the water, that Canada is criminalizing and imprisoning, constant surveillance and war tactics really on Indigenous land defenders. I myself was thrown in jail for our stance against the Sun Peak Ski Resort, and big time too for my stance. Been arrested several times, around 4 or 5 times, in our defense of our water. And we're constantly bombarded with industry coming into our territories, whether it be ski resorts, mining, the Trans-Canada Highway, CP Rail expansions, and the Kinder Morgan pipeline. There's like many different industries that are bombarding our nation, especially living around the Shuswap Lakes, which is the houseboat capital of the world, and we call it tourism, terrorism on our lands and our territories. I'd just like to tell you all today that I'm a mother of 4, and I gave birth to all 4 of my children out of the hospital and on my own. I delivered them on my own, and I don't have them registered with the Canadian government or the province. What happened in Elsipogtog, it inspired people straight across the so-called country of Canada. It inspired people straight across the world. But if they didn't make that stance, if they didn't take that hardline approach that targets a lot of us as organizers and warrior societies, they have to risk that. They have to risk being outlawed. They have to risk being on the run. They have to risk being in jail and getting strip searched. Like, these are the things that families, that fathers and mothers put on the line for our lands and our territories, that we have a connection to this land, that the blood and bones of our ancestors are underneath this earth, that are here. We're so intrinsically connected to the universe and to the earth as Indigenous peoples. That connection is more greater than you can explain in the English language. And this is why that people take these strong stances to stand up for their territory. But as occupiers of other people's lands, as visitors to other people's lands, we have to understand that we have a responsibility to that territory as well. Like as if I went to Africa and I went into a tribal village there, I would have responsibilities. I would have to follow the laws of their people, follow the laws of their land, respect them. If I couldn't go to a certain area because that's a sacred area, then I don't go there. I don't go pollute water over here. Like, this is just common respect that I would have on going into someone else's territory. So I'm asking everybody here as the occupiers, civilian occupiers of Canada, that we have to start recognizing what territory you're on, and that you have a responsibility as occupying an Indigenous territory. You have a responsibility to help defend that and protect that as well, and not just leave it up to the Indigenous peoples, because we are a minority, and because we have small numbers, we need other people to stand up and take that strong stance as well. And Elsie Buktuk was an inspiration. It was an inspiration for a lot of people. And you could tell the difference between the different areas that they had went to go speak to along this tour. You could tell what level of the culture of resistance is in those towns or those cities or those centers, wherever they may be speaking. And I'm proud to say that I'm from Scotland, which is a real resistance community. We have a really strong culture of resistance there. And I was proud to see how much people cheered when they saw the actions and the strong stances that they took, even the lighting of the police cars. Like, my people cheered in our hall. Like, this is like the type of pride that we get when we're facing up against Canada, and not that we want to cause harm on anybody, but it's a form of defense. We have the right to defend ourselves, and we have the right to defend our nations. And as Indigenous peoples, we've always had alliances with other nations, and bringing the Mi'kmaq out here to so-called British Columbia, and making sure that it was important that they link up with the Indigenous communities and resistance, like the Unistoten camp, which is stopping 7 proposed pipelines up in the Unistoten clan, the Wet'suwet'en territory. They have a cabin there, they're building a pit house, and they're facing off against industry. They can't go into their territory without going through the prior informed consent protocol, where you go up to the Morris River and to the bridge, and you have to state who you are, where you're from, your purpose coming to their territory, and what skills or knowledge are you bringing in that can help their people and their nation. And if they work for the government or industry. So these are the things that they had to answer going into that territory, whether you're non-native or native. I had to do the same thing going there. And these are the things that people have to realize when we're going into somebody else's territory. That's the traditional protocol. And this is what they're bringing back. So Togastai from up there at the Unistoten camp, he had also taught me to switch my wording around when I'm talking about rights. And we need to start upholding our responsibilities, that those are our responsibilities that we are born with, our inherent responsibilities to defend our territories and defend our water. That's something that we as mothers, as fathers, as human beings on this planet have to do, and not let Canada continue to control our minds. That, like my sister said, like, Canada doesn't really exist. What is happening is the occupation of our territories. The same thing in Palestine, like, this is the same thing that's happening here. It's not anything different. But a lot of my brothers in the Lawyer Society, they talk about civilian occupation, and that even civilian occupation is an act of war on our people. And until the occupiers will realize that, you have to either fight on the side for clean water, or you're going with Canada and you're being an accomplice to the crime. And we don't want to be an accomplice to the crime, all of us. Like, I don't want to be an accomplice to the crime either by continuing on a assimilated lifestyle, a consumer lifestyle, something that's creating garbage on our planet. Everything we do, turning on the electricity. So in our community, with our whole decolonization, we had built our traditional homes again, where we don't have electricity. We're candlelight, and we have our fires, and we don't let cell phones into our pit house. We don't let these type of things, so we could raise our children with a free mind. We could raise our children clean like how it was. They don't have IDs. They're like, well, what's going to happen when I have to drive and stuff like that? Like people are like, well, what are they going to do when they got to go to the hospital? Well, we are their hospital. It forces us to be independent in all every means with our education.